These are fairy lights, but they're RGB fairy lights. You can see their color changing. And there's actually 3 wires that go between them. And those 3 wires connect to a little device here called a Node MCU. And this is just mocked up. I'd actually solder it together, but I wanted to mock it up and show you how I did this. And it's really cool. You can set it to any pattern, just like I can do on the front of my house, through the power of WLED running on that little controller. Alrighty, these are from BTF Lighting. This is the fairy light string. It is 5 volts and 50 LEDs. Max power is 10 watts, so it doesn't use that much. It's 2 amps. And you can see there is a female connector and a male connector. And it also comes with a male pigtail. This side gets connected to the controller. Now, what do you use to control it? Well, you can use something like this, which is an Atom addressable strip controller. If you want to order these, they're pretty slow because I think they ship directly from China. And that's fine. It has WLED pre-installed on it. But I really wanted to give it a try to say, what's the simplest way to do this? And so I actually bought a 5-pack. These are a Node MCU, they're called. And this one is called a D1 Mini. And it comes with all these solder terminals, so you can connect all these different kinds of things to it if you want to go that route. Or you could solder your wires directly to the board, and that's probably what I'll wind up doing. All right, so we're not going to use those, but we are going to use this. Now, I want to see how to put WLED on this. I've never done this before. This is new to me, but it's got a micro USB connector on here, and I just happen to have a micro USB cable connected to my Mac. And so I'm going to give this a try and see what the story is with this. I'm just going to plug that in. We're going to live dangerously. Oh, I did see a little blue light on here right next to the... This is actually a Wi-Fi antenna. And really there's nothing on it. There's a reset button here, which I don't even know what that... Oh, you can see it blinks that light when you click reset. All right, so the first thing I want to do is install WLED. So let's do that. So all I did was Google WLED install, and you can see it says it's going to take me to install.wled.me. And you go there, and you select which version you want. Of course, I want the latest version. And all I have to do is click install, and it will find where my board is. That's the one that's connected, I guess. It's the only one that shows up. So it finds the ESP chip. And all I have to do is that, and it connects right to it. Install WLED. I want to install. It's obviously going to erase all the data on the device. You can see that blue light is blinking. And you can see that it is blinking as it is uploading whatever it is that it's uploading. All right, installation is complete. That didn't take very long at all. So at this point, it prompts me to configure Wi-Fi. So I'm going to put my Wi-Fi here. And it is connected to my network. Let me see if I click Visit Device. You can see the IP address is shown there. And I am actually connected right now. The blue light is on, indicating that if there were lights connected to this, they'd be on right now. So if I click power, that should go off, and it does. All right, I'm gonna disconnect this from my USB cable because I'm done with the computer. All right, now what you also can see, not only does this have this pigtail, which will connect to the Node MCU, which I'm gonna do in a moment, but here you can see it has 2 wires, 2 leads for power injection. And there's one has a red line on it. That is positive, and this one is ground. And this runs on 5 volts. These are 5 volt LEDs, and this device runs on 5 volts. I have this little plug-in 5-volt power supply that I bought for this kind of a project just to play around with, and it came with, you know, different ends, but I stripped them off, and that's what I use to do stuff like this. So let me strip these real quick. Now, like I said, the red one is the positive side, and the other one is negative, or ground. All right, those are connected. Now the pigtail has 3 leads, and you can see there's a red line on the one, and that is, obviously, that's going to be the plus 5 volts. The middle one is going to be data, and the other one is going to be the ground. Okay, so forget data for a moment. So these 2 wires here connect to those 2 wires there. So I can use those 2 leads to power the Node MCU. But here we have, this pin says 5V on it for 5 volts. This one says G, that's for ground. And then there's another pin here that says D4. That's actually the one we want. That's going to be the one for the data. So unfortunately, they're not all 3 in a row. I'm going to have to do a little bit of twisting, but what I need is, I'm going to just take this 5V and put it in here. It's very short. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try a different pigtail that I have. This one is exactly the same. It just has red for the 5 volts, and then green is data, and the white is the ground. So I'm just going to take this. Let's plug it in first. And these connectors are kind of universal. Anytime you buy this kind of RGB string, you're going to find that you get these. Okay, so those are the way, that's the 3 of them. Okay, now all I need to do is, actually, let me widen this a little bit so we can see it. Now I just need to plug in my 5-volt adapter. Oh, and look at that. Not only does the blue LED go on over here, but you see I have some lights on these. They come up as orange. That is the default that you'll always get with WLED. All right, now I have WLED up here, and you can see it says orange. If I just change it to red or blue or any other color, it will come out here, but it comes out by default. It comes out orange. Now, you can also see, hopefully, that this last LED here is not lit, because by default, when you come into WLED, let's go into LED preferences. By default, it says total LEDs are 30. So it's hard-coded to 30 is the length of the string. So I'm actually going to change this to 50. And every other setting, the defaults here work fine. GPIO 2 is that pin, that D4 pin that I put it on. By default, that's where it would go. Now, in case you're wondering how I knew that D4 was GPIO 2, is this diagram was in the Amazon listing. So it shows the D1 mini pinouts. And that's how I knew exactly what D4 was the pin that I needed. I could also use a different pin if I really wanted to, but then I'd have to reconfigure WLED. But by default, WLED looks for GPIO 2. So I'm going to save that. And now they are all blue. You can see that last LED is also blue because it knows there's 50 on the string now. Let me show you how I can change the brightness here. So that's the brightness is down, and here is as bright as they go. And let's see, I can make them solid white, and that's bright white, and turn it up as high as I can. That's like as bright as they will go. Let me turn the brightness down because it just overpowers the camera. Okay. So there's this concept here in WLED. It's got up to 3 colors that you can pick. And the foreground color is the number 1 is usually the foreground, and number 2 is the background. So I'm going to just choose green and red for Christmas colors. And if I come over to effect, let's see, that one is called Android, and you can see that it is a kind of a chase pattern. Candy cane is a standard. That's always white and red. And again, I can turn down the brightness so that you can see them better with the camera. And I can chase 2 colors as well, and you'll see that The red and green are chasing. Of course, it looks completely different when you open the string up. And let's see, if we go back to colors and let's change, we'll set number 3 to blue, just for the sake of having a third color. And if you choose Chase 3, you'll see it introduces all 3 colors. There's tons of other effects on here that you can play with. Now this is a good one. This one I like is called Fairy Twinkle. All right, the effect intensity determines how many of the red pixels there are going to be. Now what I want to do is I want to change it, so let me reverse the number 1 and number 2. There is the Fairy Twinkle the way that I like it, with it mostly red with a little bit of green mixed in there. Now let's say we like that one and I want to make a preset out of it. I come over to the presets, create preset, Fairy Twinkle, and I want to use current state, so make sure that's checked. Click Save Preset. Now I can always come back to this anytime I want. So that preset is preset number 1. Now let's say I really like that one and that's the one I want it to come on to all the time by default. So what I can do is I can remember number 1, come back to Config, LED Preferences, and if I scroll down here, it says Apply Preset 0 at boot. I'm going to say Apply Preset 1 at boot. And save. And now I'm going to disconnect my 5-volt power supply and the lights go off, and then I'm going to plug it back in again, and you're going to see it goes right back to that same effect because I set that as a preset. And I said I want it to always go to that when it powers on. So I soldered the pigtail onto the Node MCU so it doesn't come loose anymore, and I realized that I don't need to power it with a power supply like this. I can just plug it into a normal micro USB cable and power it with one of these things, which used to come with every iPhone, so I have a ton of them. And that's it. That's enough power for something small like this. It probably wouldn't drive, you know, a much higher wattage of string, but these little ones, no problem at all. Well, what do you think? If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment if you have any questions, and I will see you in the next one.